Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. Today is Monday, October 20th, 2025. So I was not able to put up videos on every day this weekend. I had a video that was, it was like a day and a half, and it got 12,000 views already. I put up yesterday on Sunday, or whatever it was. And so I am going to start putting my videos up like a day and a half apart. It just makes more sense for me to do that. It seems like YouTube recommends videos and it will give notifications when there's some gap. It gives people a chance to catch up to whatever's going on. And so, if I'm getting double the views on videos that are farther apart, it just makes sense to do it that way. We'll see how that goes, but I'm not going to I was doing it every night at 9 p.m. and I'm going to stagger the videos and see what happens. So, with that in mind, I got a kind of bunch of odd video clips here, and then, well, it not really has anything to do with that. And then I have a ton of comments to get to. And so the first thing here is Zepbound commercial from 2025.
For adults with obesity, Zepbound means change.
Those are the fucking tunes.
It's changing what I believe is possible when it
It's changing what I believe is possible.
comes to weight loss.
Zepbound is not for cosmetic weight loss. It's just for people who are going to die.
Zepbound helps adults with obesity lose weight and keep it off.
Look at her ziplining. Look, I'm ziplining now. Hey, I'm ziplining. I used to weigh 400 pounds. Now I'm ziplining.
Don't take if allergic to it, or if you
Don't take it if you're allergic to it. That's one of the things I always say. Like, how the fuck are you going to know if you're allergic to it? It's a constant side effect now. Don't take it if you're allergic to it. It's not our fault. I mean, if you're allergic to it, you're taking it. Well, what can we do about that? The only way you could know is if you take it, right? Isn't like they do allergy tests for Zepbound or all these other pharmaceutical drugs. So you take it and you have an allergic reaction. And they're like, well, if you keep on taking it, that's not our fault. And, it might take a while for you to understand you have an allergic reaction to it. Most people who are really obese, they're not as sensitive to their conditions of their bodies, right? And so, you wouldn't really maybe necessarily know you're having an allergic reaction until it got really bad. And who knows what the allergic reaction is right off the bat, right? But there's more.
you or someone in your family had medullary thyroid cancer or multiple endocrine neoplasia syndrome type 2.
So if you have these medical conditions, you're not supposed to take it. And maybe you don't even know that your family has a predisposition towards this.
Tell your doctor if you get a lump or swelling in your neck. Stop
Because, why would you have it?
Zepbound and call your doctor if you have severe stomach pain or a serious allergic reaction. Severe side effects may include inflamed pancreas or gallbladder problems.
No one needs an inflamed pancreas.
Tell your doctor if you experience vision changes, depression, or suicidal thoughts.
Okay, so that's the one there, right? Vision changes, depression, or suicidal thoughts. Scheduled procedures with anesthesia. And so this thing can make you commit suicide and have suicidal thoughts. Like there's drugs out there, 200 of them, that cause depression and or suicidal thoughts. Like that's how fucked it is, right? There is medications out there that can make you want to kill yourself or make you depressed. To over 200 of them. And this is just so you can lose weight and, all these other issues, these Ozempic like drugs. And we don't know what the prolonged, like Ozempic, they have a whole different understanding. Like, yeah, they tell you the side effects, but then there's, you can never go off it and all these things, right? And so, like, this is acceptable to people. People like, who needs those safety precautions, right? Like, people will take these drugs even after they hear these possible side effects because they're like, that just, that doesn't apply to me. Because if it does that to anybody, it's not fucking good for you, right? Like you don't need side effects that come with like an apple, or like especially one that's organically grown or whatever it might be, right? I mean, maybe you might have it for the pesticides, but there's foods out there like you're eating every day, and there's carcinogens in them and things like this. But natural foods and stuff like that, you're not going to have a reaction to. Some people are have an allergic reaction to some of these things, but they're not going to make you have suicidal thoughts, right? Like this is, these medications are like poisonous.
Or scheduled procedures with anesthesia. If you're nursing, pregnant, plan to be, or taking birth control pills, taking Zepbound with a sulfonylurea or insulin may cause low blood sugar. Side effects include nausea, diarrhea, and vomiting, which can cause dehydration and worsen kidney problems.
Zepbound means change.
It means change. And so it's amazing to me all this stuff that, I play these side effects and people are taking these medicines. And, they don't read the ingredients. Doctor says to take them. Like the doctor should be like legally bound to go over the possible side effects, but they get paid to push these pharmaceutical drugs. They get their shekels, just like Charlie Kirk. These doctors go to these conferences and get $50,000, $100,000 to speak at a conference with like 15 people about the medication. They recommend these medications to their patients, and the pharmaceutical reps give them all kinds of, whatever it is, like it's like pornographic. Like you see these, movies about this. These pharmaceutical reps take these guys out and, they bring them to strip clubs, whatever they do on these vacations. They buy these doctors. These doctors push these medications based in their, getting sheckled. And so this is America right now. And then people will take them anyway because, they just don't believe it'll happen to them, or they just don't give a shit anymore. Okay, so you guys might have seen this video here. I knew this was AI slop when I saw it, and I put it into Gemini, and it confirmed it. Gemini, you have to, put it from YouTube. I get AI slop sent to me all the time. And, it's, first of all, why is this dog in a room with a baby by itself, right? Where are the fucking parents? All these things. I mean, aside from being AI slop, this would be a bad decision because, you can trust your animals around children. It'd be great. Your babies, dogs are wonderful animals, but, they're dogs, right? My brother got a pit bull for a while. He was really into it. And it was a full-grown adult pit bull, so it didn't bond with his kids. And a few things happened. I had a roommate, had a pit bull named Crockett, and I loved that dog. I mean, I was waiting tables, so I was there at home during the day, and I used to take that dog out all the time. But one time, my roommate came in with a hat on, and Crockett charged at him and ran like right up to his legs. The guy took his hat off, and Crockett looked like totally confused. Like I just almost offed my owner or whatever, bit him or whatever it was. But you have these dogs that are, my brother said I don't want to trust my kid's safety to the, the reasoning ability of a dog, right? And so you just wouldn't leave a dog your baby in a room by themselves, right? Like the door's closed, it shouldn't be there. Where they say just go stay in here in case there's an earthquake, right? So, but that's aside from that. I mean, it's just bad thinking when you're making this AI slop. But this video's gone viral, and there's so many of these videos out there. And they are looking more and more realistic, and oftentimes they involved animals. And so, now it's just been compromised. And I bet they get to a point where it'll be hard that it's, you'll be able to determine whether something's AI slop anymore. And, the tools are getting better. Okay, so I'm editing here. What they're doing here is you're going to question the fabric of reality, because the thing about YouTube, and then everybody having a phone, you're carrying around a high def video camera in their pockets, was you had all kinds of video footage, right? You had all kinds of things you didn't have before. People would tell a story and they say, yeah, this is what happened. And people are like, no, look at the video, right? So then you had this video confirmation. And in all the sea of lies, the sea of bullshit that's out there, you had, now video confirmation because people could just make shit up before. I mean, the way the technology has gone. And there's video cameras every fucking where. They have this extensive spy network. I mean, it's hard to, do anything without being videoed on it, especially if you live in a city. All these criminals and people like that. So, they have extensive CCTV, whatever it's called in England. That's like one of the worst places, but in all these cities. And then just random cameras and, doorbell cameras, and it's just everything's getting caught on video. And so the truth community and people starting to do their own sort of investigative shit and, videotape and everything, there was a level of accountability that was starting to happen. And now it's just blown away. It's just gone because now they can just say that's AI slop. And anytime I see a video with an animal in it, I'm like, I'm going to show, I have a crow video at the end of this thing. I'll show this. And I'm pretty sure that's true. And it could be true either way. But, all these things are now suspect. Everything that you see now is, especially as the AI technology advances, is suspect. So you have to question the fabric of reality, which is illusionary anyway. But now there isn't anything like called facts anymore. And that's partially because everything that's happened where liars can get away with stuff like Trump and these other people. They can just lie about things or pretend not to care or do whatever. And just, ignore them and then say it's AI slop or whatever it is. And that's where we're at as a nation where people no longer have any sense of reality. Like people had reality-based lives at one point, but now with the internet and then now the onset of AI is even worse, that everything is illusionary even on a different level. Like now you have the illusionary aspect of the cyber world and the digital world and the things that are playing out on screens. And so most people don't live external lives where they're interacting with nature. It's an illusion that you're in your physical body because you're a soul. Your soul is illusionarily caught in this three-dimensional world where you have senses and these things that you don't have as a soul. Your soul doesn't have, the five senses. It can't see, it can't hear, but it's operating at a different level. And so your soul isn't, used to seeing things and experiencing things, right? You're in this matrix, this simulation. And so there's that, the idea of Maya, the Sanskrit word Maya. You're temporarily a soul inside a body and all this illusionary stuff. Anyways, I get some good comments I got to get into about this stuff later. Some spiritual stuff. And there's this epic thing coming up with Eric Trump Jr. It's just platinum. Anyways, let's get back to it here. Your estranged auntie and her boyfriend after a 7-day cruise around the Caribbean. This is a wonderful meme. This is where AI slop is classic. I remember when Roseanne first became kind of like a truther. She started talking about Hollywood, MK Ultra, and all these people. And people thought she had inside information. They were like, oh man, she's aware of this. She's confirming all these things. And then she just went nuts, right? I thought the bitch was white. I play that, but she screams too loud. But anyways, and this guy, Tom McDonald, started to rap, and but then he went all Republican, and there was this celebrity problem in the truth community that began to emerge, where celebrities, usually has-beens or ones that were down on their luck or whatever, they were, their career was kind of over anyway, or they were pseudo-celebrities, semi-famous, they were celebrity adjacent, would come into the truth community and immediately be propped up like they were, they were good, solid truthers. And they hadn't gone through what you need to go through personally. There's an arc to this thing, right? You come in, and you believe, you first are like shocked that the official story is complete bullshit. Like everything that you're hearing is, if it isn't a lie, it's manipulative. It's whether it's truth or not, it's all manipulating you, right? It's all being, carefully presented to you as a psychological operation, because the people who control the system, the one thing they do is fear the mob. They fear the mob going, ape shit and taking over and killing everybody, and killing the aristocracy and taking the system down. The people who are the so-called elite, and just keeping the system going, which is even more important because it's a debt-based economic system that's based in perception. You lose faith in the system, you lose faith in the dollar. What would happen if everybody just thought the dollar was worthless? If the dollar became worthless to them and they don't, take it anymore? There's going to be a point where people will be like laughing at you. You hand them $1,000 for a loaf of bread and they laugh at you. Like what else you got, right? You got something to barter with, because that fucking shit isn't worth anything anymore. Certainly digital money, it's becoming less and less even real. And so, you had these people who came in and they were not going through the phases of your own personal development as an understander of this, right? First, you got to understand that the story's bullshit, and then you got to understand that most of the alternative narratives are also bullshit, being put out by either people who are looking for clickbait, or people who are working for the government, or just wherever it might be. So, then you have a second level of bullshit you have to get through, and then you realize it doesn't fucking matter whether you know this or not. I mean, it certainly does in a way for your own decision making, but most people aren't making decisions based in, people run back to the beast. They take the medicine. They ran back and took the vax. They ran back and took the, when they get scared, they run back to the beast anyway. They claim to be truthers, but they run back to the mommy and daddy as soon as they hear, it's like fucking something really that might threaten them. And people are still eating the shitty food and taking the shitty medicines and doing their shitty whatever it is, and then just they watch this stuff just to get, it's like almost like a horror stuff for them. They like to get scared, or they like to get angry, or they, it's for an emotional reaction. They also want stuff that aligns with their Republican views, or their Christian views, or their, whatever, their liberal views. It's just whatever it might be. And so they're still not changing themselves. They're not figuring out how this might affect them, that they've been lied to about everything in one way or another since they were kids. So, you go through these various things, and then you start presenting information. These celebrities come in, and they haven't gone through any of that, and they're just looking for, one last little shot at fame. The guy Isaac Cappy was a classic version of this, but Roseanne was in this, and this guy Tom McDonald. And you realize these people aren't on your side. They're kind of worse. They're just, they're celebrity parasites that's feeding off the, the work that has been created by, average people who are just, looking for truth. But anyways, good meme. Okay. President Trump posts a meme that shows him running for office forever. Trump forever. There's going to be a weird thing that goes on when he's done. And I don't know what's going to happen. There's going to be a collapse for him at some point, because there has to be, after doing so much damage. The problem is, do I have this here? No, here is this one. This is your alternative, right?
We're going to tear up the crown.
I mean, this is, Fire Marshal Shill here. I had this meme of her as Fire Marshal Shill. These are your alternatives. At some point you realize there's just no hope. The people who are in politics are all horrible. They're inhuman. They're they just, they're the ultimate shekel takers and corrupt people. And so there's no political solution. There just isn't. There can't be. And so, voting is, worthless, so there has to be another way, which is, allowing a collapsing system to collapse, because you have enough information. Just look at I started off this thing with the pharmaceuticals, and then you can get into the food, and you get into all the ways that the family's gone, and, the education system, and the way that internet has taken a hold of kids, and just all the fucking shit out there. Like, you realize we're going in the wrong direction. And when you kind of know that it's not something that can be reversed, then there's only one alternative, is that the system collapses for the good of everybody, including the environment and other species and all this stuff. That it's the only thing that God could possibly have as a solution, is to take down the system. A system that's too big to fail because everyone's dependent on it, and then have massive population reduction as a result, as a part of it, that human beings getting suicidal and self-destructive and these things. And then waking up to the fact that we did this to ourselves and we have to do better. And the souls that would incarnate then, that would come back in, would be of a higher developed nature. It's just a multi-step program here. But, that's what's going to happen. Like that, that's the only thing. There's nothing else you can do. You can't fix this, right? You can't fix you can't fix it. Look, woo, I did it. Look at everybody. You can't fix it. You can't fix Trump. You can't fix Nancy Pelosi. Like, you can't we'll vote them out and vote good people in, right? Like, there's no good people that are in politics. With the threat of your life, when you have people have money and power, and they could ruin you publicly, they can embarrass you, they could, put you in jail, they can kill you. Imagine if powerful people came up to you when you were a politician and said, and you have two options: we can kill you and your family, or you can take this, whale barrel full of cash. Which is it going to be, right? I mean, what would you do? And so, like, that's all it is. Like, once you have that ability, where there's corruption and there's threat and corruption, there's threat of bodily harm or being ruined or whatever, and you have the other alternative, which is to be wealthy and powerful in your own little medium way, just being a shill and being shackled. That's how they shackle you, right? And let's get to this here.
I would like to know, is there a region I'm not safe?
I'm not safe security-wise.
Can I meet Eric?
Can I meet Eric? Send me Eric, because Eric, all the Trumpsters, Barron Trump's worth like $150 million now. Something like that. Eric Trump and these guys are billionaires because of their crypto bullshit. Trump has, what Hunter Biden did was chicken scratch to what Trump has done, right? All these people hated Hunter Biden. And Trump has, monetized the presidency like no one else. He's such a good boy. I'll have Eric call you. That's shady shit when you whisper.
I told Harry also. We'll look for better places. Yeah, all of them. Okay.
Eric or Don Jr., one of the two. They're both scumbags. Send one of the scumbags to me.
Thank you. I like that.
Boom. Trump is just flat out monetizing his presidency.
Successful campaign to retake the White House made clear that if voters returned him to the Oval Office, he would not forget those who he says wronged him.
I am your warrior. I am your justice. And for those who have been wronged and betrayed, I am your retribution. I am your retribution.
I am your retribution. I am. I'm pretty much your retribution.
The list of people whom the president and his family have taken issue with is laid out in a new book by the president's son, Eric Trump, that is called Under Siege: My Family's Fight to Save Our Nation. It details what Eric Trump says was a coordinated plan to destroy his family, a plan that he says extended to the nation's biggest banks, cutting off access to the kind of financing that developers need for real estate ventures. Eric Trump writes in his new book, quote, "The same siege came from some insurance carriers and other financial partners, and when we lost our banking, we quickly became a leader in cryptocurrency." In fact, a Forbes article last week declared that Trump is now one of America's biggest Bitcoin investors. I want to talk about all of this with my next source, the executive vice president of the Trump Organization, the author of Under Siege, Eric Trump. And thanks for being here, sir. And
Thanks for writing a book, Eric. We needed to know what your thoughts were.
congrats on the book. Obviously, as we noted, you have been pretty busy lately on expanding into a range of ventures, including crypto.
It's great. We're corrupt as shit, right?
You told the Financial Times it has actually netted your family over $1 billion in pre-tax profits over the past year. And I think for an industry that is changing as much as crypto is, and for someone who is new, relatively new to that world, how did you make so much money so fast?
Corruption, we were like Hunter Biden, but we're not crackheads. So, the crack held him back. And, we were willing to do shit that even Joe Biden wouldn't let people do. So, like Joe Biden had a line that we don't have. He had a little bit of, he had people around him that wouldn't allow him to go full corruption like we have. So, it's.
Caitlin, I never thought I'd get into crypto, and I talk about it a lot in Under Siege. We were debanked. We were deplatformed. They came after us like absolute dogs. I was the guy getting the call from Capital One and JP Morgan Chase and Bank of America.
They were desheckled. And I don't believe that for a moment. I don't believe they were desheckled, right? They make it so.
And so many others in the middle of the night saying, congratulations, we're canceling all your bank accounts and you can't do business anymore. They literally shut us out of the financial markets for doing absolutely nothing wrong, only because my father decided to wear a hat that said, "Make America Great Again."
Yeah, that's exactly why. That's it. But they wouldn't do that anyway because they've shackled up. These guys are more shackled than anybody. He's the most shackled. So they're just now doing the crypto. They're being victims. Oh, we were victims. He was just trying to make America great again, and we got debanked. And they went after my father. They sued him, and they went after him with criminal charges, and none of them stuck for some reason. And he just kept on getting more and more attention during that period of time as Joe Biden imploded because he was senile. It's weird how it all worked out. And the next thing you know, we got billions of dollars in crypto. It's crazy. We're the victims, though. We were victimized. Okay, there's a couple more things here.
We get run over if you ignored cryptocurrency. Everything is done better, faster, cheaper. I mean, Caitlin, you want to go out and get a mortgage for your house. Why? You go to JP Morgan Chase. It takes you 120 days to get that mortgage. Why? I mean, if you have the assets in the bank, why can't you get the money instantaneously? Why can you not send a wire transfer at 5 o'clock in the afternoon on a Friday?
Friday. These guys are late to the party, right? The people who knew about crypto way well. It's everything like they've taken away from, whatever's happening in the independent thinker people, right? The true disruptors out there. But cryptocurrency has one positive, which is you can send money, right? Which is a good business, and they want to move to a cryptocurrency at some point, which will be utilized against you. They wreck everything that one time was like something that was possibly could have been used as a positive. Everything gets corrupted. So by the time the Trumpers get to it, right?
Get there until Monday. Why is
that? Why?
Traditional finance so slow? Why is it so?
Why is it so slow? Why is that, Caitlin?
Why is it so expensive?
Why is it so expensive, Caitlin?
There's nothing that can't be done better, cheaper, faster on the blockchain, and that's a beautiful thing for the United States.
It's so beautiful, Caitlin. It's so beautiful.
I see your point that you're arguing that you think it's better. Obviously, your dad does have a big stake in the business, but I want you to hear something that Marjorie Taylor Greene had to say about this. She's a really big supporter of your father's, as you know.
Not anymore.
This is something that she said just recently.
Have regular people's bank accounts been affected? Has the stress come off? No, that has not happened yet, and that needs to be the major focus. It shouldn't be about helping your crypto donors or your AI donors or welcoming in these people that hated you and spent money to try to beat you, but all of a sudden are excited to come out to the new Rose Garden patio.
What's your reaction to that?
I'm not really sure what that means. I mean, I think she's trying to describe lobbyists, and I think that probably the person that hates lobbyists the most in Washington, D.C. is my father.
He does. He just hates them. He likes to get sheckled, though. He's in the back room getting sheckled right now. some some guys behind him shekling the shit out of him.
He never was supported
She's
by
like
lobbyists.
donors.
Lobbyists never gave my father any money. You know, I mean, listen, Caitlin, all
I mean, my dad's 100% organic. It isn't like he got $300 million from Elon and he got shekels from all these other people. He's given Israel everything they ever wanted. He doesn't have any. He's not corrupt at all, Caitlin.
fairness, you were there with us through it. My father, he self-funded his entire first campaign minus a little bit of money. You know, if there's one person who wasn't taking money from lobbyists, it was Donald Trump. It seems like everybody else in Washington, D.C. does. But
It was, yeah. What she was saying was that you guys he's taking care of rich people, which of course he is, because he's a fucking elitist. Trump is the most elitist person. He's the most upward climbing, insecure, I want to be part of the club piece of shit out there. He always has been. Like, there's no, if you saw The Apprentice, if you saw him anytime before, this was what Trump was into. You saw his gaudy fucking airplane, his gaudy house, and gold-plated toilets, and, all the shit that he had, right? Just anything he was doing to make himself be like, look like he was a king. He wanted to be ultra wealthy. I mean, somebody who's that greedy. At some point, you were like, all right, I have enough. Like, I don't need any more. I don't have to, all these people are hoarders. People who hoard billions of dollars of wealth. Like, you have your work you have to do. And then it just all becomes a hassle. Because all the things that you have to do to keep your lifestyle, right? If you have, multiple private jets and you have all these things out there, big giant mansions, all yachts, you have to crew those things. You have to, have all these different people on the payroll. This is the problem with Turning Point USA. You have 450 people on the payroll, any kind of company and things like that. So then you have to keep on growing and keep on making yourself, even if you're not profitable, you have to make yourself more attractive to stockholders and these things. I mean, this is what corporations and the rest of it. But like you have a nut then, right? Alex Jones. I mean, someone like that who ends up having this big network. You become cost heavy. Like, you hire more and more people and you become more and more, you have to make so much money every month. So you have to be more and more shekel taking, right? You have to shill out for all that shit. And Trump certainly is that guy. And he's taking care of the crypto donors and the people that didn't even like him, like Caitlin Collins is saying. It's like Marjorie Taylor Greene is saying. And he's not taking care of the people who voted him in, who were loyal to him the whole time, because Trump never gave a fuck about you, right? He certainly does it now.
the one person who's never needed lobbyist money is Donald Trump.
I was just in the Middle East with your dad. He obviously brokered the ceasefire in Gaza, was there meeting with a bunch of world leaders on what the future of that is going to look like in the phase 2 of that agreement and how to implement that. There was a moment where he was speaking with the president of Indonesia. It got a lot of attention. I know you've seen this, but I want everyone else to see this as well.
It's so shady. It's so fucking shady, right?
Thank you. That's what I told Harry also. I told Harry. We'll look for better place. Yeah, all. Thank you.
I like that you told me that. We don't need.
Obviously, there are investment projects happening in Indonesia. First off, have you heard from the president? Has he called you?
No, not about that, but I'm glad he acknowledges that I'm a good boy. I am a good boy.
Hey, come on. I haven't seen this yet. I haven't seen this yet.
Projects happening in Indonesia. First off, have you heard from the president? Has he called you?
No, not about that, but I'm glad he acknowledges that I'm a good boy. I am a good boy. We have two of the biggest projects in Indonesia. We signed those in.
I am a good boy. I'm a good boy. But it's not a bad boy. Despite what I do in the back room with all the leather on me and the whips and the straps, I'm a good boy. I'm a good boy. I'm a good boy. I'm not a bad boy. I'm a good boy.
Dr. Simon, I have a dentist emergency. Craig.
Craig who?
Craig, the big boy with the very pretty smile.
This is the comedian Kyle Doonigan who plays this character, this handy-capable character named Craig. Craig dropped his mom's toothbrush in the toilet, so he calls his dentist and wants to find out how to get it out. It's called Craig versus the Toilet. Craig is my wife and I, one of our favorite internet, Kyle Doonigan, the comedian that does this. The big boy with a very pretty smile, right?
But I'm glad he acknowledges that I'm a good boy. I am a good boy.
Craig, the big boy with the very pretty smile.
So there's this, not confirmed by me, but it sounds about right. Israel just bombed a school that people are using as a shelter, killed children. This violates the ceasefire agreement and the Article 52 of the Additional Protocol, Geneva Conventions, but the international law clearly doesn't apply to Israel. There's the video there. Sounds about right. If Israel loses the United Nations, the United States, it loses everything. Genocide was a step too far. Netanyahu has blown it. This is Harvard students walking out on the guy here.
Thank you so much.
Harvard law students walk out and talk given by the Israeli ambassador.
I am very glad to be Harvard.
I want to see how this plays out, right? Like everything else, I believe it when I see it. When there's real effects. I mean, the only difference is that stuff that we've all known for years. There's a comment from somebody that disputes this, some rocket scientist that I'm going to dismantle. But this happened. So I think my wife sent this to me. This is a giant bong. The caption of it, "Are we evolving?" Whoever posted this video on Twitter, formerly known as Twitter, the artist formerly known as Twitter. Woo! Now, I don't know what kind of smoke this is. Let's assume it's marijuana smoke. He's banging on the side, please let me out. Because, Jesus Christ. There's that right there, that moment here. This moment here. Like, holy shit. What's happening? And so there's that. So back at some concert here. Like, this is what's happening. This is what people are about. Outrageous. Bayer's glyphosate-free Roundup is 200 times more toxic. Bayer removed glyphosate and replaced it with even more poisonous Diquat. Diquat causes cancer. A Diquat. Don't be a Dickwad. Don't be. Is a neurotoxin and increases Parkinson's disease by 126%. This what happened to Joe Biden. Banned in other countries for causing multiple organ failure in 7 years since Germany's Bayer bought U.S. agrochemical giant Monsanto, inheriting not only the company's vast profile of seed and pesticide products, but also more than 100,000 lawsuits against Monsanto Roundup herbicide with glyphosate. My brother, glyphosate's what was in Agent Orange, and all these guys from Vietnam came back all fucked up. And my brother was saying that when they brought out Agent Orange, like, I don't know if the guy, the sergeant, whoever was talking to them, was, people say this isn't safe, and he took his finger and dunked it in a big barrel of, like one of those barrels that has a little opening where they're, siphoning it out. Stuck his finger into the barrel and then put his finger in his mouth and ate it like this pure glyphosate. The fact reveals Diquat is 200 times more toxic than glyphosate in chronic exposure. It's 40 times more toxic in acute exposure, increased Parkinson's disease in humans, this type of stuff. So you get the idea. This is, I could put this right into Gemini and see what it says here. So it's supported Diquat causes cancer, Diquat. So, Diquat is a neurotoxin, all these things. Again, this is people have been using chemicals on their lawns. When I did landscaping for a while, there was this thing called ChemLawn, and the ChemLawns had this blue, greenish-like color, a blue hue to the green, to the grass. And it was, you could tell a ChemLawn from all the other lawns. And when they spray the chemicals and I go to cut the lawn, I'm like, I can't do this. I knew it was toxic. It said ChemLawn, these big trucks with a sprayer, and it would kill all the weeds. Some of the stuff was like dandelions, which are great for you. Dandelions have, again, I'm not recommending anything, but I eat dandelion leaves and dandelions all spring and in the fall. They're great for the liver. This is my thing, not yours. Do your own research. I don't recommend anything, but there's these weeds that are loaded with various types of nutrients. A lot of these weeds have more superfoods, right? And they kill all that shit, and then the rest of it, and then they spray it with chemicals that hurts your liver. I don't know if they even have ChemLawn anymore, but it was obnoxious. You could tell it was poisonous. And that's when I started realizing, man, they're fucking trying to kill us, right? I'm pretty sure this is not AI generated, because I've seen it before either way. Like, I know this is a true thing. This guy puts a chicken wing in a tube, and it's outside. And so crows, they're one of the few animals that uses tools. Now, this is one of the signs of intelligence, not the greatest sign. Like there's different levels of intelligence, but tools is one of them. And so crows, I saw this. I was in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And they had a great zoo there, and they had these ravens up there. And the raven was able to count. It was able to put things in different, like a green ball in a green cup and a red ball in a red cup. They could follow instructions and things, and they're really smart. Like they sometimes will gang up, and like when one crow will attack a vulture, like if there's a single vulture eating a kill, like a roadkill, and it'll see things trying to work out the puzzle here. And see, let's just so it says, all right, that stick didn't work. I'm just going to go with another one. Comes back, gets a longer one, right? So this one, he's like, all right, that one seems to work better. And so, I gotta get this one out. This one's fucking screwing me out. So I gotta get this one out. It's fucking, this one's a mistake. Okay, that's enough. He realizes it's got enough of the thing out of the way. And so, and so they'll take one will attack the vulture and fly away, and the vulture will follow it, and they'll steal the kill. So boom, it worked it out, and it's got it. So, that's pretty impressive. All right, let's move on to the comments here. Okay, let's move to the comments. Some of them they should be grouped together because they're similar topics, but I can't do that. I really don't want to. So this is the first one. Well, let me see if I can find all the Jesus ones and do that first. So I will sort of group some of these together. So this person said, actually, the only way is Jesus Christ, not spirituality, not New Age recycled. We worship him, spirit and in truth. Father, God loves you and wants you to have a relationship with you, his child. He doesn't want religious people. He wants bare you. So this was to my video about rock bottom. And let me go find the other comments here. Okay, so the next comment is somebody who doesn't agree with these Christians. This is to the video, Erica Kirk, another performance fail as desperate TPSU turns to Savannah, whatever, Chrisley. Keep swearing. The spiritually weak need to be offended as much as possible. They need to get offended at foul language, in air quotes, in real quotes. The lines are blurred between air quotes and real quotes. But ignore the fact that their governments are trying to murder them every single day. So the first part I don't agree with. I'm not trying to offend anybody. I don't give a shit about your beliefs. Like I don't care about my own beliefs. So why should I care about yours, right? There's no principles. There's no nothing. We're living in the, a time where none of that stuff is true. You can work on your own personal character. You can have your own spiritual code, your own character code, your own ethics, your own whatever. And everybody should do that. I mean, in terms, I'm not saying you should. I'm just saying that that's what everybody should do. Because it's good for them spiritually, and it's what you're supposed to do. To have some sort of, discipline and following your soul and God and these things includes developing some sort of character qualities. But other than that, what we think about the world doesn't mean shit, right? It's in automatic mode. Our beliefs do affect the world, but at this point, we fucked it and it's going to be destroyed. And so it doesn't matter what you care about, what you think is important. These belief wars and everybody battling. So I don't give a shit about any of that. That's why I talk about this stuff, and it seems like in a disrespectful way to some people, because your beliefs are they're meaningless. You think they're important, but they mean nothing. And so whether I swear or not doesn't mean anything. Right? Fucking doesn't mean anything. But I'm not trying to offend anybody. I'm not out here to shock Christians or any of that shit. Your reaction doesn't really, other than the laughter, other things that people find are funny, that I'm going to do anyway. But I'm not pandering to my audience, right? I mean, I make content in a way that, it's certainly, I wouldn't make as many Charlie Kirk videos if it wasn't getting views, so that's a part of it, right? I have to think about this thing business-wise, but I don't mind covering it. I could cover anything, so, I might as well cover things anything that's not spiritual is done for you all. It's stuff that you guys will find interesting because you won't want to just listen to spiritual stuff. Like if I was, had my way, at some point, maybe I'll just make spiritual videos talking about spiritual principles. I contrast the corrupt material world with the people who are materially focused and ego focused as opposed to being spiritual. That's what gets contrasted here. And so contrast is needed for people's own whatever it is, right? Keep swearing. The spiritually weak need to be offended as much as possible. They get offended at foul language, but ignore the fact that governments are trying to murder them every single day. Yeah, that's what I say that myself. That, why do you care that I'm swearing when people are fucking trying to kill you? It's worse than killing you. They're bringing you down a fucking dark path that could hurt you spiritually. It could fuck you in future existences. I mean, it's not just this life. It's, what they're doing is, it's a whole thing. They claim Jesus was some kind of love and light, new age hippie and never got angry or lashed out. I called out psychopaths. They're too busy projecting their one lame ideas about Christ onto Christ, the fake Christian project, the personal delusion onto everyone else. They're totally unaware that Jesus means I am in the French language, and Christ is a term much older than this planet, way before the fake character in the Bible. They don't know that Buddha wasn't Buddha's name. They don't know that Jesus Christ was an identity for all, not one man. Christ, Buddha are terms, titles, levels of achievement. They aren't individual beings per se. Now, I don't know how much that stuff's valid. It's Jesus the Christ, and his name was Yahshua. My wife and I, when we're driving, we'll read billboards. If we're driving around town, there's some billboards. And, if we travel and we go through right-wing areas, and we always read it, Jesus, right? So whatever it is, Jesus hearts you, that kind of thing. Buddha the guy's name was Siddhartha. So Buddha is a concept, like the idea of a master, right? Spiritual master. In the Saj Marg, there's a master of the system. There was 3 of them, and the 4th one crapped out, which I'll get to because someone would comment about it. But it's something to obtain. It's a condition. It is a level of spiritual excellence. If you reach the level of Christdom, which is point 2 in the Yatra points, which I talked about in another video. But none of this stuff is. Let's find the other Christian video comments here. Okay, so this is the epic comment here that I want to address all this stuff. So the person writes, it doesn't matter how much you get right if you don't have Jesus Christ in your heart. You have so much insight into what's happening before our eyes, all the deception, and that you lead us all the way into denying Jesus Christ as the Son of God. Instead, it tells us about a better system, the Saj Marg, mindfulness meditation. This is spiritual warfare, and you sound like an unclear spirit. You have tons of awareness and knowledge, but you're not on the narrow path. You're a clever one. I'm a clever one who needs a good kick in the ass for my last video. Okay, so, and there's a response to this, which I'll read too, because it's kind of interesting too. But this gets into my thing. So this is to the video, Erica Kirk, another performance fail. It's desperate. TPSU turns to Savannah Chrisley. And so I'm not leading you down any fucking path. Like, there's a person who wanted to call me master. I've had a few of these things where people want to follow me like I'm a spiritual master, which I'm not. But I said then, I don't want people calling me that because it's not true, but also you might want to accept me as a master, but I don't want to accept you as a disciple. Like, it's a 2-part relationship, right? You can't accept one person as one thing if the other person isn't willing to be that thing for you. Like, am I willing to be a master for you? No, that's not what I'm willing to do. Like, that's where I'm limited. Someone said that they didn't think I was a slacker, but, my commitment isn't there for people, humanity, the way that the masters of the Saj Marg system is. I'll perform services here in terms of my work for God, but, I'm limited because I don't really, people suck, and, this isn't working for people, it's working for God. But I've seen what's happened to people like this before, the spiritual masters of the past. Now, the Saj Marg masters weren't killed, but they were all betrayed in one way or another. In fact, Master Charji, the 3rd master, said, it's 1 out of 12 disciples will betray you. But taking on disciples and taking responsibility for other people's spiritual well-being, their spiritual evolution, is a huge fucking undertaking, if it's just for one person. And the Saj Marg masters did it for, thousands of them, hundreds of thousands of them at the end, right? And it's a huge commitment, right, to other people. And, you're responsible to work through them and be with them. Babaji was often compared to a Sherpa, the 2nd master of the system. A Sherpa that would lead you up to the mountaintop. Mount Everest would tie himself to you. So if you go down, he goes down. And would lead you through all the way up to Everest, which is, not even nearly a fraction, a millionth as hard as it is to weave your way through your spiritual journey. And I don't have the capacity for this. I haven't been chosen for it. But I understand that, people would want that from somebody, but who says I'm willing to give it, right? Or that I have it to give. Because neither of those things is the case. I'm not willing and I don't have the capacity. And so to be a master like the masters of my system, I wish I could provide that for all these people, because this other guy crapped out, which I'll get back to in a moment. We'll come back to this part. But, I'm not leading anybody anywhere. I am a conveyor of information. I am at best a conduit for God's energy and God's, wisdom to come through me. And this person's acknowledging that that's the case, right? This is what's great about this comment. It doesn't matter how much you get right. Well, it does matter. Why am I getting it right? If I am not with Christ or I'm not a Christian, I mean, I'm with Christ more than Christians are with Christ, because Christ is a part of what I'm doing. Christ has been a part of the Sajmark system now for like 60, 70 years or something. Is, one of the many higher developed souls that's working on behalf of humanity in this system. And so, you can believe that or not, but I believe it 100%. And I had a dream with Jesus in it. And Jesus said, I had this dream where I walked up to Jesus and I said, is it okay if I talk about Christianity to Christians on my YouTube channel? And he said, yeah, that's why I'm sending them to you. So that's, for me, confirmation that Jesus wants you to hear this from me. But I don't, believe it or not, I don't give a shit, right? Like, that's what I believe. It doesn't matter what you believe. Like, I don't care. Like, this is, I'm doing my part. That's all this is, right? Especially the spiritual stuff. It doesn't matter how much you get right if you don't have Jesus Christ in your heart. Well, it does, because that would mean you could get things right without Jesus Christ in your heart. You have so much insight into what's happening before our eyes, all the deception, and yet you lead us all the way into denying Jesus Christ as the Son of God. So there's two parts to that. I have a lot of insight. Where does that insight come from? It comes from divinity. I practice a system. And so you're acknowledging that I have it, but you're denying the divinity within me. You're blaspheming what you see with your own fucking eyes, right? You're the same piece of shit that would have killed Jesus. Again, you're not murderous in this case, but you're denying, you're like Thomas denying the divinity that I have in me. Because divinity comes through me to whatever extent. It can come through anybody. This isn't a brag. It's a willingness. And I've been, working to connect to divinity inside of me since 1993. So what is that, 32 years now? And so it's substantial. And it's, it's an accomplishment to keep going like that, whatever. I don't know, like not an award accomplishment, but just you gain things when you're consistent in your spiritual pursuit. But you can see that through my knowing things, how much I get right and how much insight I have, the words that you used, and you're denying divinity in me because of your own fucking bullshit religious indoctrination and prejudice. And so that's the first part. And then it says, all the while all the deception, and yet you lead us all the way into denying Jesus Christ as the Son of God, and tell us of a better system, the Sajmarg mindfulness meditation. And so I'm not leading anybody fucking anywhere. This isn't a fucking invitation to follow me. I'm a loner and an introvert. I'm not fucking, that's not what I'm about. I don't want you to follow me. I am a conveyor of information. I would rather you not do it. Like, I don't want, this is not for you. If you're set in your Christianity, there's so many channels and things out there. But why would you come here knowing that I give better information, that I'm more accurate, that I'm more with God, that I'm more perceptive? I must have a better system, right? Because I'm a piece of shit, so it can't be me. Like, if I was a Christian, I would not nearly be as interesting. If I was a Christian, I wouldn't be as insightful. As I was a Christian, I wouldn't have it right, because I wouldn't be able to have the capacity to see the things, because I wouldn't have as good a system. And so that's 100% for me, I'm sure of. But I'm not making this for Christians. I'm not making this for people who are set with their religion. I'm not making this thing for atheists. I'm not making it for anybody. Just for the people who can rise up to it, right? Or people who can embrace it. But that's between you and God. It has zero to do with me. I present the information. I'm a messenger at best. The information flows through me. I'm willing to work for God in that capacity at this YouTube channel and other places. And then other than that, that's not my issue. The Sajmarg mindfulness meditation, this is spiritual welfare, and you sound like an unclean spirit. It's funny because there's an actual cleaning process in Sajmarg. I did confession, and I did cleaning, and confession did zero for me. The first time I went to confession, I had been sick with mono in 5th grade. And in catechism, in Catholic catechism, that's when we learned the Hail Mary. So I knew the Our Father prayer because I went to catechism every year. But I missed a whole year of learning my Catholic ways. And I don't have a problem with my Catholic upbringing. I'm grateful for it. My mom had prayer meetings and she did the rosary. I mean, it was all great, but it's not as good as what I do now. It was, it's kindergarten to now the spiritual world, which is you start developing real, knowledge. Like kindergarten's great, but then you need to learn to read and write, and you need to do these other things. But anyways, so I went in and I did confession. I made a bunch of shit. I was like, I swore. Yeah, I didn't feel bad about anything, right? I was a, whatever age kid I was, 7, 8 years old. I guess older than that. I don't know what it was. When you take your first confession. And I come out, the guy goes, you have to do 5 Hail Marys. And I'm like, fuck, I don't know the Hail Mary. I didn't learn that because I had fucking mono. And so I go to this kid next to me, I'm like, I don't know how to say the Hail Mary because I missed it. And he goes, well, I'll trade you 3 of my Our Fathers for my Hail Marys. So he said the 5 Hail Marys, and they were shorter, so he thought we'd be better. And I said the 3 Our Fathers, and we had a trade, and then we both, fucking meaningless, right? And so the Sajmark system of cleaning is completely different and better than that because it actually works. Individual cleaning, getting sittings, and it takes away the things that block your connection to divinity, and it cleans your, what you would say, a clean spirit. You don't have a system like that in Christianity. You don't. And again, I'm not trying to fucking sell you something. I'm not trying to disparage your thing you do. You don't even know what I do, and you haven't evaluated the two systems, which I have. Like, I understand what Christianity does. I understand what the teachings are. We fucking all do. We all fucking get it, right? I'm going to go back to the other comment in a second. The Sajmark mindfulness meditation, this is spiritual warfare, and you sound like an unclean spirit. You have tons of awareness and knowledge. Where do you think that came from? Like, I wouldn't have that if I was doing Christianity. I get it from the Sajmark system. But you're not on the narrow path. You're a clever one. What fuck clever one is that? Like, I don't give a shit about you. I'm not trying to fucking sell you something. I'm not trying to shekel you, right? Like, I don't even have the Sajmark system. Well, let me read the next comment. For those of you who are, here's the other comment. So the person says, it's heartfulness, not mindfulness. And FYI, we are all children of God. I'm not a Christian. I'm not going to hell when I leave. And it said read more, but somehow I didn't click that. Because the best important thing is it's gratefulness meditation. And gratefulness meditation is something I made up. Because Sajmarg had 3 masters. And the 4th master, a former pharmacist who lived in America, Kamlesh D. Patel, who was a good practitioner of the system, someone I was friends with, acquaintances, good experiences with. He was a spiritual person. And he was nominated to be the 4th master. And he became really corrupt and really fucking stupid. And he's done like moronic things. And he created this thing called heartfulness, where he was moving public properties into, and again, some of this is what I've heard. Like, I don't have, some of it I know was happened, and some of it's, like his son has been indicted for, this Medley pharmacy. There's an FCC indictment, Federal Trade Commission indictment about, or whatever it is, investigation. I don't know what, there's something going on with his defrauding investors of $170 million because they create this pharmacy scam, and they absconded with the money and went to India, right? And so, like, stuff like that, I know some of the other things, but they've said that I've been told by people in India that he has created this heartfulness parasitic organization to take the properties, probably $1 billion of ashrams, and these were all donated by people and constructed by people. And he's degraded the system, right? And so heartfulness is bullshit. Like, I don't do heartfulness. Heartfulness is not what I do. Like, people who listen to me should know that by now. I do gratefulness meditation, which is just the old Sajmark system, which I have preserved on a YouTube channel and, made it as accessible for other people as they can do it. But they don't get what I got. They don't get to go to preceptors or go to gatherings or meet the master. And I'm, kind of sad about that. I wish people could have the experience I had. So it's very limited. Some people are able to do it, maybe 100 people or so. It's not an organization. We don't have much contact. I put out videos every Tuesday for those people, an individual sitting. And there's other things. There's other playlists where people can experience the meditation. And it works for people who do it, some of them. People claim to love it. It's working for them. I'm glad. I wish there could be more. but it's all I can do. It's my, it's what I'm able to do. But other than that, I don't, it's not like I'm creating some group or cult or something like that, or trying to win people over. It doesn't fucking matter. I don't get credits for you guys trying Gratefullness, trying Sagemark. I don't get anything from it. I just paying forward what I got, and it's the solution. If you felt like you had the solution to humanity's problem, we have a people problem. We don't have anything but a people problem. People suck, and the way that they get better is connected to divinity within them, and their bullshit religions block them from doing that. Christianity blocks you from connecting to the divinity within you, and you can see it. Like it's already played out. Let's go back to that original comment, right, where the person says, actually, the only way is Jesus Christ. Well, how do you know it's the only way? Because you were told that as a little fucking dumb fuck? When you grew up to a big dumb fuck? Not spirituality, not New Age recycled. Why do you think that your system is so great when the evidence is that you guys suck? Christianity's done nothing but damage. And Christian people, for the most part, they're great ones. They're wonderful Christians out there. And I'm not disparaging the ones that are sincere and they're just good people. And there's, even if it's half of them, the other half are fucking complete horrible people. And it's probably like a 70-30 breakdown. Like how many good Christians do you know if you're a Christian? Or how many, just in general, how many people you're like, well, that person's a good Christian. But even with that, it's limited. Because it's not very spiritual. It's more of a materialistic religion. It's, Jesus was a social reformer. Not that Jesus wasn't spiritual, but he had, mostly a spiritual sort of reforming type thing. We worship him in spirit and in truth. Father loves you and wants you to become in a relationship with you, his child. See, this is the part that gets sticky. He doesn't want religious people. He wants bare you. This is where you're trying to tell me what I should do. Like, I'm not telling you that you need to do Sagemark because I know most people can't do it. I mean, they can do it, but they can't. And that's, you need wins. You need reasons. You need experiences. You need some reference point. People are trained in the opposite direction. Like when I started doing Sagemark and I had, this huge experience, like a St. Paul, bigger than like a St. Paul experience of divinity within me. It was transformational. And I was lucky because not too many people get that in their first sittings. And if I didn't have it, I wouldn't do it. And so I can understand why people would just walk away because I really wasn't interested in God. I wasn't interested in meditation. I already tried that shit and I didn't like it. So, it was the strength of my experience, this undeniable experience of God that I had, like on a deep fucking level that I can't, and I've had so many of these other experiences, I can't deny the efficacy of the system. It's like one of those things where you're like, oh yeah, I can't deny God, right? I watched this show called The Bondsman with Kevin Bacon on, and Jennifer Nettles, my wife and I call her Jen Nettles, called The Bondsman on HBO. And it's this guy who fights, Amazon Prime. And he fights demons. He's, former Bale's bondsman. And, when he realizes that demons and the people in his life realize the demons, they're like, holy shit, God is real. They're Christian. It's a Christian thing. But, there's things that you would see and you're like, oh shit, this is real. Where it's just things you hear about, you don't see, but then you see it, you experience. And I had those experiences. And so in the Sagemark system. But I've told people in the beginning, I was more desperate to tell people because I was frantic and I cared that people did it or not. And now years later, I don't give a shit. But, I talk about it and it's there and each person has to have their experience. The difference between the Sagemark system is the Sagemark system doesn't use force. And Christianity uses a shit ton of force and it's backfired, it's caused problems. And there's lots of people that are against God now because they think Christianity represents all godly pursuits. I've talked about this in many videos. And so it's the force that you guys use that pisses everybody off. And when you come to my channel, which is about this, you can, if you see that I have something going on here, I have some insight, I have some, these were going back to the words that this person used to describe me here. Let me see if I can find the thing here. I lost it. Here we go. Let's pull up the comment again. So the person says, That's the wrong one. Is this the one? Here's the right one. Okay. That was the one that said keep swearing. So the person says that I get things right. You get things right, right? You have so much insight, right? I have insight, I get things right. You have tons of awareness and knowledge. And I'm a clever one, right? These are all things that the person can see. They're not denying any of that. I get people that come here that get pissed off because I shit on the thing that they're doing. I had a comment from someone, I don't think I have it here. I don't have it because I would have read it already. That said that they were a former QB that got pissed off at me, but now they realize Trump is a piece of shit and they've come back. Which is, and people are getting recommended my channel. There's some other things here. But, there must be some reason that I have insight. And I'm telling you what it is. It's the Sajmark system. It's made me into I couldn't even function. I was a low-functioning piece of shit that, was underachieving. I had some talents and some abilities, was just going nowhere. I was 29. I dropped out of college twice and just couldn't sustain relationships, was low-functioning. And the Sajmark system made me into somebody who could function. It propped up the weaknesses that I had, and it strengthened my strengths, and it's there for me all the time. And it's the cleaning and transmission, and it doesn't use force, and it doesn't use coercion. It compels people through love. And so it's a unique system in that way. And, people are lucky that they get to even hear about it, and, that's the way I see it. All right, the next comment. If Jews were controlling the media, they wouldn't be so much anti-Semitism, idiot. I'm a clever one and an idiot. The thing about that is, all you have to do is look up who are the CEOs and who owns media markets. If it's Jewish people, then it's Jewish people, right? And they're going to influence, especially if they're pro-Israeli people. That's the other thing. Not all Jewish people are pro-Israeli, but if you find out these guys are Zionists, and you look at there's 6 major media conglomerates. There's Reuters that's owned by the Rothschilds family. These people who influence media, and whatever religion or whatever their ethnicity is going to be, whatever their beliefs are going to be a part of that, right? If they're billionaire, trillionaire owners of media, you can just look it up. Like you can ask, who's the CEO of all these companies? You go to ChatGPT right now and ask who are the CEOs of the 6 major media companies and what religion are they? What ethnicity are they? And if they're all Jewish, or half of them are, then they have some substantial control, especially if they're Zionists, which they are. So you can prove it yourself. You don't need to fucking write stupid comments. FYI, Paul, Russell Brand says he's taking a break. Booze City is toxic and is totally nothing to do with the trial starting next year for multiple grapes incorporated, including that of a schoolgirl. If God needs him to speak, he will be back, he said. I forgot about that because Russell Brand was supposed to be with Savannah Chrisley. And they said he was there, but he wasn't. And I'm like, why would they invite that guy? And I forgot about he was accused of all this shit. Savannah Grothy's family was convicted felons, and Russell Brand is being investigated. And he was a drug-using piece of shit who turned sort of right-wing. And so, they're scraping the bottom of the fucking barrel there at TPSU. And then this person writes, this is to another Erica Kirk performance fail and desperate TPSU and Savannah Guthrie. Buddy, you clickbait us to yap about everything but Charlie Kirk. This alone doesn't help newcomers want to sub because it makes you untrustworthy. No one gives two shits about your personal life. How pathetic to use Charlie Kirk's just a vent. Get a therapist. Well, first of all, I delivered on everything I said in the title. Erica Kirk, another Erica Kirk fail was when she was out there not laughing, not crying, and not being sad, totally normal, when she was showing the medal to all the people that worked at the CPSU office there, the 40 people. And she was laughing and joking around, just like she was joking around, laughing and smiling before she did one of those bad performances. So that delivered that. And the other part is the Savannah Guthrie was the longest segment in the video. And so it just came later in the video just because that's the way it worked out. And so you could have searched through the video and found what you wanted. But see, I want to say that I'm not making videos for you. Like, the content is either good or it's not. And it's you either benefit from it or you don't. And that's between you and the content, right? This is what I keep on saying to people. And so there's some more comments down here. So there was a series of these things. Oh, there's a shit ton of comments down here. So this was a comment where a person said, Hillary was executed at Gitmo for treason. Oh, this is a funny one. I have a friend who is a major in the madness who was at Gitmo guarding the president. They also have executed at least 2 other of her clones. I saw pictures of her dead. Believe it or not, do your own research. And so some next person under there wrote, LOL. And then the person under that wrote, well, you saw the photos, so it must be true, with a laughing emoji. And another person wrote, oh dear. Another person wrote, don't forget the FBI raided Michelle Obama in a hotel room with his boy toy and was taken there too. It was in the Inquirer around January 31st. And then the next person says, nope, didn't happen, my friend. Alex Jones and I got to make this bigger because I can't see that word. Alex Jones and the Chai Corns got her. Chai Corns? A sleeper cell of the Chai Corn Ninjas, Chinacom Ninjas, Chicom Ninjas got her. He will tell you all about it all tonight at 2100 hours p.m. And the other person say, well played. And so that was something. Okay, so I'm going to read one more comment here, and then I'm going to go eat lunch. And then I'll read the rest of them. Bravo, well done, Hare Krishna. Somebody wrote that to me. I'm not a Hare Krishna, but what people don't know about Hare Krishna is that in the Mahabharata, the Yudhishthira, the guy who was the son of Dharma or duty, who was he was an excellent leader and king and just had impeccable integrity and character qualities, but he was the worst gambling addict of all time. He gambled his whole he gambled himself and everything that they owned, because he was the oldest brother, so he could do this. And he was the king of the one side of the people in the Mahabharata. And he, his gambling addiction caused the conflict between him and his cousins. But he gambled all their possessions away, and his 4 brothers and his mom and his brother's wife. And his brother's wife was named Draupadi, who was supposedly the most beautiful woman in the world. His brother Arjuna won her by one of the kings, wanted his somebody who was worthy to win his daughter's hand in marriage. So he had a pool and he had a spinning circle that had one hole in it and then a target on the other side of the hole. And you had to look down at the reflection in the pool and shoot an arrow through the hole and into the target. And only Arjuna was the only person that, was able to do that. So she was his wife, and she was a devotee of Krishna. And after the cousins won after Yudhishthira it was a rigged gambling game by his uncle Shakuni, who could manipulate the dice with his mind. He could make the dice, come out whatever number he wanted. And so he gambles his family into slavery, and his uncle, the other king, says, no, this is fucked up, gives them back to him, and then he does it again. And so Draupadi was like in a tent, and she was having her period. So she was like, immodest. And back then, when they had their period, they just go hide away for like the whole day. Right? Which, make America great again. And so she they drag her out and they're going to strip her down in front of everybody, like strip her naked. And they're just so fucking the ancient Indian culture that still exists, today. There's, they don't let them show their ankles, right? And so it's like a fucking, it's really bad. And she prays to Krishna, and so she says Hare Krishna. And as she's saying that, they're trying to pull her sari off, and there's just infinite amount of clothing. Like they just keep on spinning her around, and she just keeps on, more clothing is produced. And then they kind of realize, holy shit, we're probably going to be fucked here. When they realize that God's intervened there, they kind of come to their senses a little bit. So, Hare Krishna. All right, let's get to one more comment here. Eric also wore a G-ring Knights of Malta crossed and displayed for all to see when she was supposedly at his open coffin displaying his body. Yeah, that G-ring, a lot of people are saying it was, that's what it's from. I don't know if that's true or not, but it could be. All right, I'm going to take a break now. I'll come back and do the rest of these. Okay, just got finished with lunch. And I just want to get going again here. Okay, so it says Pockets of the Future, Blasts of the Past, all these old channels popping back up. I'm all for it, of course, but it poses the question of an ominous why though. Well, I don't know the answer to that question. So for those of you who've been around the last couple of years, my channel has been really just declining. They started shadow banning it in 2018. Started 17, they started changing the rules. 18, and then right after Joe Biden got to be president, it got really bad. But it wasn't just the shadow banning, there was lots of factors. And then the money just dried up where I was making, less money than I went below my bottom line limit, which is $100 a day, which is really bad. It's below the poverty line. And it just kept on getting worse over the last period of time. And then I got the Charlie Kirk bubble recently, and all of a sudden all these people are getting recommended to my channel again. I don't know what's going on with all that. They start opening things up, at least in terms of community guidelines, after Trump 2.0. It's hard to say because who knows why they do what they do, right? A lot of times it hurts them financially. It's not good business. A lot of times the censorship and the other things are about, bad business. So, who the fuck knows? But the way to counteract that is to bookmark channels, right? Is to you got fucking bookmarks on pretty much every browser. You can leave tabs open. There's all kinds of things you can do to make sure you get content. I know there's content I have to search for, and I search for it, right? And sometimes I have to search harder, and I bookmark fucking the shit out of everything because you might not be able to find it again. At least with a bookmark, you'll know when it says, that channel doesn't exist or whatever, at least what's happened. But if you don't do that, then it's just things disappear, and you're like, hey, what happened to that guy? Just that kind of thing. Next comment here. Hey, Paul, I was wondering what your opinion on near-death experiences is. Well, I would say probably you should try to avoid them. There's that movie Flatliners, and I think they made a remake where people were trying to have the experience of physical death, but you don't need that, right? If you are meditating, if you're connecting with God, there'll be times that you penetrate to the spirit world. When you go to sleep, you're in the way you're dying, your consciousness is gone, and you're now in the etheric realm. And so the place where you go when you're dreaming, your soul goes, you're not, your physical body's in a death state. Your physical body is withdrawn from the world, and you are, now connected only to the spirit. So you're already having death experiences without the physical aspect of it. People who die and come back and these things, I don't know how much people are able to, like, how many dreams do you forget? Like, how many dreams do you actually remember? You dream all night. Some days you wake up and you don't remember any of your dreams. And waking up from a coma or a death experience would be even more so. You know, there's a veil between your spiritual life and your material life, and it's hard to penetrate those things. So, but anyways, we all experience that realm of existence in our lives. Paul, Charlie is the saint for the Republican Zionists as St. Floyd was for the lunatic liberal Democrats. Well, only because they've made these guys saints, like they've, manufactured this idea that they're somehow saints because they were victims. Like this is a whole thing about the crucifixion, going back to that piece. I was listening to I saw a little short video from Louis C.K. about, the cross, and he said similar things to what I had said. And he was talking about how you've had this horrible, bloodthirsty, image of a guy getting tortured on a cross. I mean, there's a man being tortured, and people have learned to celebrate it. I talked about this in an earlier video, and how, they had a crucifixion problem, because people want to be kept safe. So how do they say Jesus is going to keep you safe when he died by, abusive crucifixion, where he was powerless to prevent himself being crucified? So they had developed this story that he died for your sins and his dad sacrificed him. That was back when sacrificing a person. I mean, think about just how fucked people are that crucifixions exist. It isn't like we're better now, that we don't, consciously know of these things being done. People are capable of all these things. Still, and even worse, people are actually worse now. And people just do horrific things, like weird superstitious shit, and, burning witches and throwing them into the water. Women who are, she's a witch, let's fucking drown her. If she floats, she's a witch. If she sinks, she was good. Oh, she sunk, she was good. Fuck, we made a mistake. Let's drop another one in there. Just weird shit that they did, right? And so, this image of the crucifixion that, like Louis C.K. was joking, all these really sweet people, nice people have this, old ladies have this crucifix over their beds. And if you didn't know what it was about, like it was the first time you saw it, you'd be like, why the fuck is that there? I mean, when you walk into when there's a movie and you walk into a place with a pentagram, you walk into a place with all these, imageries, if there's blood on the ceiling and walls, and, if there's pictures of people being tortured, you'd be like, oh, that person's a fucking monster. But it's been normalized that there's a crucifix that's there, right? So, there was a video where I showed, this is Erica Kirk gets caught faking grief, and Trump thinks he's going to hell and more. And to that video, one of the I was covering how Mike Huckabee and his band were playing Sweet Home Alabama, but it was Jerusalem, right? It was fucking weird what they did. And somebody wrote, play Freebird. That was a kind of comic thing that they would always say. It's a thing I joke about. This person writes, Andrew Colvett was guilty. Here, let me make this bigger here. Andrew Colvett has guilty draped all over him, and he betrayed Charlie, and betrayed's in capital. He moved into his place quickly, into Charlie's place, including his wife. She's pregnant, by the way. Wonder who it belongs to? 5 question marks. Think. Yeah, you don't know that, right? We don't know, whatever. Apparently Candace Owens is going scorched earth. Today's Monday, October 20th, so I assume she'll be coming out with a video today or tomorrow. She was on vacation. And I'll cover that. But, it's just, I mean, somebody Judas, maybe they all Judased him to some extent, right? I mean, maybe they chose Shekels over Charlie. And so we don't know if it's that guy, that boring, low testosterone dude. Kind of strange that Shekels and Shackles sound so similar. Yeah, it just kind of worked out that way. It's 2 different languages. I hyped the fuck out of this video. That was to the video Rock Bottom. I covered some of these things before. This person writes, Uncle Paul, small suggestion. I hear other YouTubers say, if you donate to the channel, please use Buy Me a Coffee and capitalize app, because the bloodsuckers at YouTube skim 30% right off the top. Now, I know nothing about Buy My Coffee, and this is the only channel I make donations to. But if Buy My Coffee's thing is real, I'd much rather show my thanks through them using ThemeTube, Greedy MNFers. Thanks again for the hard work. I'm just so technologically, I'm an old guy, right? Like I know the technology I need to know. Anyways, the Buy My Coffee app, I just searched it. It takes only 5% of the donation. So I'm all for it. I can, I'm not announcing anything today because it'll take me somebody maybe can remind me. Can people remind me about this in like 3-4 weeks? Just in case I don't get around to it, because this is, But, I don't mind supporting YouTube a little bit because YouTube is underwater and it's, it'd be a big hassle for me. In terms of not just my content, but all these bookmarks, videos, important videos I have that are on YouTube. I mean, it's it holds a lot of information that's valuable on it. And if it disappeared or was compromised or some way, taken over by China or Israel or something. I mean, it's not that YouTube is, I know all the issues with YouTube and I'm living them, but, it is something where I don't mind supporting it a little bit because of the, it's, all of it. Whereas Patreon doesn't do anything for me. But it would be nice that I would get 95% instead of 70%. And so I'll definitely put that as an option. People that asked me to put a Bitcoin donation thing in there. And I looked into it and I tried to do it and I couldn't. And then I forgot about it. And that probably would help me out. Things would be a lot better if I had done that. But anyways, that's where my, I get overwhelmed by this stuff. So this person writes this here. I only got a couple more comments to get to here. I've always struggled with the question of who or what God exactly is. Why would such a loving God design us so badly? Our own survival depends on us brutally killing animals and other living things so we can eat. Just look at animals in the wild, the way they brutally rip other animals apart just to survive another day on the planet. Surely there could have been a better way to design things. Why create us so disgusting that we turn an apple or a birthday cake into a horrible stinking pile of crap? That's a story, if you guys haven't heard this story. And so in the Indian guru tradition, there's a thing called the Guru Dakshina. And a guru can be like the guy who teaches you archery or a person who teaches you, some skill that you're going to use. That's your guru. Like it's an apprenticeship. And then there's, of course, spiritual gurus, which are the main ones. This guy goes to the guru and says, I want to be your disciple. And the guy says, well, first you have to bring me a Guru Dakshina. And so the disciple says, okay, what do you want? He said, bring me the worst thing in the world. So the guy goes out looking for one thing after the other. And each thing is worse than the next. And so finally he's like, I'm never going to find the worst thing. And so he goes to defecate. And, when he's done, he looks at the poop and he goes, hey, that's the worst thing in the world. He's going to scoop it up, and the poop talks to him, because this is a talking poop story. And the poop said, what are you doing? And the guy said, well, my guru wants the worst thing in the world, and I think you're it. And the poop says, what do you mean I'm the worst thing in the world? I was birthday cake or an apple before I ate you. I was wonderful food, and you're the one who turned me into this. So who's the worst thing in the world? So the guy goes back and says to the guru, I found the worst thing in the world. The guru said, what? He goes, it's me. He goes, well, I'll accept you as my disciple. And so this person is saying, sure, there has to be a better way to design animals. Why create us so disgusting that we can turn an apple or a birthday cake into a horrible, stinking pile of crap? Wouldn't a loving God have made us better than that? Well, just, it's poop on in the big scheme of things goes back into, nutrients and things. I mean, we eat a lot of toxins. So people process their own manure called Humanure. There's a whole book called Humanure. You can get a composting toilet. But when you have cows and for example, rabbits are great because their poop is immediate fertilizer. But cows and horses, and especially if you're feeding them good, wholesome food, but in the wild, like if there was, wild wildebeests or elephants and these giraffes and things, they eat leaves and they eat these things and then they poop them out, and it's loaded with nutrients. Their urine, your urine is loaded with nitrogen. You see in like a pasture, cows won't eat where they pee, and there's these huge, big tufts of grass that sit there for a couple of years, and then eventually the cows will eat them. But there's all this nitrogen that's going into the area. Cows pee out a gallon of nitrogen. So if you take cow pee and cow poop, you turn it into nice fertilizer, you grow all kinds of incredible nutrient-rich food. So it's not like it doesn't have some value, right? Just like your body, decays into and becomes part of the environment. That's why they used to plant fish, salmon and things like this. Salmon would come up and wash up on the riverbeds, and they would nurture fill the area full of nutrients, right? So it isn't like that stuff, it's the parable's one thing. Stinking pile of crap. Wouldn't a loving God have made us better than that? I believe that only spirituality will save the world, and that we all need to connect with the divinity inside. Why isn't it made easier to achieve that this is if it's so important? Why can alcoholics and drug users easily connect to God? Why can't alcoholics and drug users easily connect to God? Surely these people are greater need than most. Why would a loving God create so much pain and suffering for good, innocent people and reward the evil ones? Does God really love us? Many people online have asked these questions lately. Okay, well, I will answer them because I know the answers to all these things. The first one, in terms of eating meat, without predators, the herbivores, the pasture animals would not only overpopulate and become sick and wipe themselves out. If they took away all the predators, then we've seen what happens. They eat all the food. There's a thing called overgrazing. So if you have, like where I've lived, we have lush pasture, and you need 1 acre per cow. But in the West, you need at least 4 acres per cow. The deserty areas, the upper desert, New Mexico, Arizona, those places, Oklahoma, Texas. You need, depending on where you are. Some places it depends on how much water there is. Places like Ireland, there's thick grass. Places like Iowa, these states that grow things would have a lot of rainfall. It's also seasonal, right? And you have to feed them so much hay. But, there's a thing called overgrazing. And what they've done in, these western areas is they run too many cows through an area, and the cows eat everything down and kill the plants. This is part of the Dust Bowl issue that happened years ago. And so if you have overpopulation of herd animals, then they would not only eat everything and starve to death later on, because they would eat everything down to its roots. They would kill the plants and they would destroy everything, right? Lots of these things, the goats and deer, they'll eat the fucking bark around a tree. We just saw that the other day. A deer had eaten one of our trees, and one of our fruit trees, fig tree, and it started eating the bark around it. So, there's all these kind of things that are there. So they need predators. Predators keep the herd strong. It thins out the weak ones. You need to thin out the weak ones. We have been raising inferior, babies that would die in the natural flow of things. We've gotten the technology to save them, but oftentimes they have, weaknesses, physical weakness, and they're suffering and pain and things like this. And, if they're genetic weaknesses, it becomes genetic, and then they have babies, and you have more and more weaknesses. Human beings are very weak right now on a variety of levels, not just physically, but emotionally and psychologically, because there are ones that shouldn't be reproducing, right? People are talking about, the way that reproduction is selected, these incels, involuntary celibate. Well, there's a reason for it, right? And, a lot of the reasons they're all twisted now because of modern day civilization. But, you used to have to fight for your ability to reproduce. It's a good thing because it keeps the species strong. There has to be adversity in the physical world. So, you see these animals, these herd animals, or even predatory animals, when they lose a fight or they're going to get killed, they just, they leave their bodies. there's a part where they just surrender to it on a natural level, much better than humans, because they just know this is part of it, right? Like this is just the way it goes, and it may look brutal to us, but it's a part of life here on planet Earth on the three-dimensional plane. Your natural state of being in a soul form. There's no body, there's no senses, there's no pleasure, there's no pain, and yet people, souls incarnate in for a reason. And that reason is a lot to do with freedom of choice, where you have to be able to evolve spiritually. So there's a great book called The Role of the Master in Human Evolution, which is available on like eBay and places like that. It's a bunch of talks from the third master of the system, Master Charji. And there's another book called What is Saj Marg? And between the two books, there's this talk that's given. I'm not sure which one. But he talks about how that up into the point that you're a human being, your spiritual evolution, let's say you start off as an amoeba or a rock, and you start off as a rock, you evolve into an amoeba, then you evolve into an insect, you evolve into you get more and more capacity as your soul learns to master the third dimensional world. And then you become a reptile, then you become a, whatever it is, a cat, a cow or something that lives around people. Domesticated animals that live around people start to ingest their consciousness. They start to become humans themselves. Like you see this with people's pets. Some people's pets are one life away from being a human. And then you move up to the human stage of evolution, where now evolution, your spiritual evolution, is 100% now by choice. And so, if you're thinking, something with higher level consciousness is, not just necessarily here on Earth, but whatever that is, it's your choice to go with God. It's your choice to evolve spiritually. It's your choice to follow your soul's path, which we see. Like it's 100% your choice. It's never forced. There are things that happen in your life that might direct you towards that inevitability, and one of those things is pain and suffering, right? Because now you have the ability to feel pleasure, and you are incentivized to reproduce, strong sexual drive, a strong pleasurable response to sex. And so there's that. You're incentivized to eat food, strong appetites, feeling of gratification when you eat. You're incentivized to drink, you get really thirsty. And then you have these, various things that have been created, alcohol and drugs, pleasure-based things. And you have something where you can experience pleasure, and you could choose just to live a pleasure-filled life. But what happens when you get drunk? Well, you have a hangover. What happens when you use drugs? Well, you have, physical issues, right? I mean, these are toxins and poisons that negatively affect your body. But even if it just was something that was organic, that was healthy for you, it affects your mind and your choices, and it delays what you're supposed to be doing. And there's consequences for you when you don't do what you're supposed to be doing spiritually. And so with all that, those are ways to incentivize you to get it right and figure out you're going in the wrong fucking direction. And so those are all the consequences you see around you, is people living ego-driven, pleasure-centric lives, not thinking about their soul and spirituality, not wanting to connect to God. And then they get into deviant behaviors because of their, you start off with anything like a gateway drug. The next thing you know, you're doing snuff films, right? And so we see what the levels of depravity people can achieve. And it's because God doesn't force you during this stage. But once you reach the stage of liberation, or mukti in Sanskrit, mukti, and you no longer have to be, you reach that spiritual stage and you don't have to come back to planet Earth. And your soul now goes wherever it goes in the etheric world, and you're no longer bound to planet Earth and becoming a human being. Your spiritual evolution is then, once again, it's automatic. So you have this one part of your spiritual evolution where you enter into the physical world as a soul, and then it's through choice. And not everyone makes the right choice, even inevitably. Inevitably the universe implodes on itself, and so you're pulled back into it. But some souls just choose the deviant path and they never make it back. So I think that answers all those questions. This idea that death is bad is wrong, because you're here, it's like playing a video game. Is death bad in a video game? I mean, is it, when you watch the things happen in a video game, Does it really feel like you're getting shot? Is it really, it's the video game is, even as sensory stimulated as it is, it's still not, there's a level of detachment from your avatar, your character. And so your body that's here is not who you really are. It's a creation for your soul to exist in. And eventually, and thankfully in most cases, you get to leave this life. And, especially if you're the more miserable you are, the more difficulties you've gone through, the easier it is for you to transition out of this life. So there's, it's just the way people have of thinking about it. Like, people think certain things are good, certain things are bad, and most of those things are very immature now because people are immature and materialistic, so they don't understand the real reasons for things. They don't ask God. You could just ask God, what's the reason for this? And, pretty much everything I've said here, I'm sure, will be confirmed by your conversation with God. But anyways, there's that one. Another one here. Thank you, Paul. I found this one particularly interesting when you have addressed the afterlife. You are making spirituality relatable. So I'm truly grateful for, and God bless you. I'm not sure why I included this comment, but maybe I did that by mistake. And so this one, one more God, when we're done here. I'm losing my voice. This is to the rock bottom one. You pointed to God at the end, but made no mention of the way to him, which is Jesus. Again, I've already read this thing. This is the one with the person said, you need a kick in the rear. And so that brings us full circle. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely reporting for the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.